Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something really exciting. We're taking a look at a business model that is quietly but absolutely powerfully sparking a pan-African retail revolution. We are talking about scaling Africa through the micro-franchise kiosk blueprint. Look, we're going to take some fairly complex business concepts today and break them down so simply that literally anybody can understand them. We're talking about how everyday, ordinary people are getting plugged into massive, scalable systems that are completely transforming the continent's economy. So get ready, because this is going to be an incredible ride.
So, I want to start by asking you a question. What if you could turn a single roadside shop into a pan-African empire? Imagine this for a second. Picture a vibrant, brilliant young black entrepreneur. Let's call him Ade. Now, Ade is out there every single day, right? He's running his street-side kiosk, hustling super hard, selling daily essentials to his neighborhood. He's got the drive, he's got those crucial local relationships, but honestly, he is completely on his own. Now, what if we could take Ade's everyday hustle and plug it directly into a massive, scalable machine? What if his small shop wasn't just a solo struggle to survive, but the actual front line of a continental empire? Well, that is exactly what the micro-franchise model does.
You know, in the traditional informal market, the daily reality for millions of vendors is just so fragmented. There's often a lack of consumer trust, and street vendors basically have zero leverage to get good prices from suppliers. It's a grind. But the micro-franchise solution flips the script completely. It takes that exact same vendor and hands them a business in a box. They suddenly get a trusted brand name above their stall, fully systematized operations, and ready-made infrastructure. Instead of constantly fighting the current, they're suddenly riding this huge wave of organized support. Okay, so let's actually look at this kiosk network itself, because it's way more than just a place selling snacks. These kiosks act as mini retail hubs. They're food and pharmacy dispensaries, fintech agent booths for mobile money, solar charging stations, and even last-mile logistics pickup points. The parent company does the heavy lifting. They build the tech, they sort out the complex supply chain, and they establish the brand. But the actual operators? They are local, young black men and women, everyday entrepreneurs running these diverse kiosks and genuinely sharing in the massive growth. Basically, the company builds the engine, and the local community gets to drive the car.
All right, moving on to Section 2, building the engine, the legal blueprint. Let's break this down.
So, to run thousands of kiosks, you really shouldn't just use one giant, clumsy corporate entity. It's actually a lot like human anatomy. You use a multi-entity structure to keep things clean. You've got the holdco, or holding company. That holds the brand and the software. Think of it as the brain. Then you have the operating company, the opco. They train our vendor, Ade, and manage the day-to-day operations. They're the muscle. Next is the supply chain company, which moves the actual inventory. That's the bloodstream keeping the kiosks alive. And finally, the special purpose vehicles, or SPVs. They handle the finance and real estate, basically providing the fuel. Every single layer exists purely to support that local operator on the ground.
Now, of course, if you're building a network this massive, you have to play strictly by the rules. While the micro-franchise system is all about empowering the local vendor, the parent company has to carefully navigate Nigerian and cross-border regulatory bodies. We're talking about dealing with the Corporate Affairs Commission for registration, the FIRS for taxes, NAFTAC for health and food safety, and even the Central Bank of Nigeria if those kiosks are handling mobile money. Look, compliance isn't just boring red tape here. It is the absolute shield that protects the brand, protects our local vendors, and secures the investors.
Which brings us to Section 3, fueling the machine, capital and revenue. Let's talk money.
The true magic of this model lies in these incredibly scalable recurring revenue streams. The parent company isn't just making money by selling a single bottle of water. No way. They earn recurring franchise fees. They make a margin on literally all the inventory supplied to the network. They charge software subscriptions for the point-of-sale systems. They take logistics margins and, maybe most importantly, payment commissions on every single fintech transaction. By controlling the distribution and embedding finance directly into the kiosks, the profit margins completely skyrocket compared to traditional retail. But let's keep it 100% real for a second. This venture demands high working capital. Why? Well, because you have to actually buy the goods before you can supply them to the kiosks. Managing inventory cycles, moving huge trucks across regions, and physically building and deploying these branded kiosks demands strict, rigorous cash flow management. It takes real, upfront cash to keep the physical goods flowing to our vendors.
So how do they manage that cost? They use what we call an asset-light flywheel. Let's walk through the 4 steps really quickly. Step 1. Centralize the supply chain. You buy goods in massive bulks to get the absolute lowest price. Step 2. Franchise the operations. You don't pay employees salaries to run the kiosk. You partner with local entrepreneurs who run it as their own business. Step 3. Deploy the standardized kiosks. And Step 4. Scale geographically. This is hands down the most scalable model in Africa because the parent company owns the complicated supply chain while the day-to-day operations stay directly in the hands of the local franchisees.
All right, let's get into Section 4, navigating the potholes, risks, and roadblocks.
Any explainer worth its salt has to look at the full picture, right? We need to ensure you understand the structural realities of the market impartially. This isn't just some hype-driven fantasy. It's a real business in a complex environment. First up, infrastructure gaps in electricity. If a kiosk sells cold food, power outages are a huge hurdle. Second is currency, or FX volatility. If you're importing goods and the local currency drops, your profit margins get squeezed tight. Third, local governance issues, and the very real threats of inventory fraud or local licensing crackdowns. And finally, founder conflicts over equity as the company grows. Recognizing these risks neutrally and early is exactly how a strong company builds systems to overcome them.
And that leads us to Section 5, the big picture, scale, and exit.
So, once you've navigated those potholes, what is the ultimate endgame for this blueprint? Well, it all comes down to the magic of the network effect. One unified system powering thousands of decentralized local businesses. Think about it for a second. Every single time a new kiosk is added to the network, the parent company's purchasing power gets stronger. They can negotiate way better prices from suppliers. Consumer trust in the brand deepens across the board. Basically, a victory for one single kiosk operator improves the leverage and profitability for everyone else involved.
And the best part? This doesn't have to stop at one country's borders. We absolutely have to talk about the AfCFTA advantage, the African Continental Free Trade Area. This agreement acts as a massive tailwind. It allows this exact same model, with regional supply chains and standardized distribution, to seamlessly cross borders. A kiosk model proven with Adele in Nigeria can be replicated for a young woman entrepreneur in Kenya, a youth operator in Ghana, or a local business in Rwanda.
When you build a network that massive and that efficient, the exit strategies become highly lucrative. Big players are hungry for this kind of setup. Private equity firms love predictable cash flows. Telecoms and fast-moving consumer goods giants, the FMCGs, they want to acquire these massive, deeply embedded distribution networks just to push their own products. Or the company can simply become a long-term dividend machine and eventually maybe even pursue an IPO.
Now, to attract the kind of international capital needed to reach that scale, companies often use strategic foreign incorporation. By setting up the brain of the operation, that holding company we talked about earlier, in places like Mauritius, the UAE, or the UK, they secure immense investor confidence. It provides foreign exchange flexibility and makes it so much easier for diaspora investors and international funds to securely inject capital into the African market.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. The blueprint is proven. From a single brilliant black vendor hustling on the street to a continent-wide network powered by cutting-edge legal and financial systems. The tools are here, the market is ready, and the people are hungry for it. So what role will you play in building Africa's next retail empire? Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a developer, or an investor, there's a massive place for you in this Pan-African narrative. I highly encourage you to reach out, ask questions, and step directly into this movement. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I seriously can't wait to see what you build.